Hi, Gary. Jeff Hewson, farm at Langbank, Saskatchewan. Great presentation. It's really fascinating to see the pace of change and the new, mentioning Facebook and all these companies that didn't even exist, and same thing with your company. And yeah, the pace of change is remarkable. One of the big issues I've had in terms of a lot of the data collection stuff we've had in the past is, it seems like it's hard to get it past that 96% level of accuracy, whether it's tracking acres of a crop on a certain field, and if it's below 96%, in a lot of cases, that's kind of an arbitrary number. It's almost less than valueless. So I'm wondering, maybe a more specific technical thing, like we have lots of fields that are big blocks, right? 2,300 acre fields, 1,800 acre fields over 13 different legal land locations. So will that technology be to a point where, if maybe there's 2 different crops seeded over 8 different land locations, that data can be brought back to the individual quarter section, in a non-cumbersome way, so that information can then be sent to insurance providers or other, other carriers. Because what we found so far is that it's really hard to aggregate that data back to the individual quarter, and then, then we spend so much time guessing that it's almost easier to just go with the original guess on what seeded acres were for a field.
Absolutely. So if I understand the question correctly, it's will the data be georeferenced properly to a field and be able to pull that data, aggregate that data for yourself so that you can hand that to an insurance company? Is that?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so with climate, if you plant, if you have your air seeder going, it's going to georeference exactly down to your sub-acre within the field that you're seeding, how many acres you seeded in that field. If you then go back with your combine and let's say your sloughs got a little bigger or you didn't combine your hilltops, it's going to tell you exactly how many acres you combined. So now you can know how much you seeded, how much you combined, what's your difference there. And it'll also do the same with your sprayed acres, so all of your as-applied acres. So all that can happen already. I'd be happy to chat further about how we can make that happen as well if you have more questions later. Good question.
Hi, Matt Sawyer, Director with the Wheat Growers Farmer at Acme, Alberta. I would like to thank you for your presentation, and I think that possibly I'm a little bit of a latecomer to a lot of this. I think I'm caught in between that different gap of possibly the generation that was missed. I'm a little slow. I wasn't allowed to play video games as a kid, and now I'm just getting used to all this stuff. So I saw that little black puck that you're taken around, and we did convert to John Deere combines, and we were introduced to JD Link and all that this fall. And I think that some of the electronics out there in the past were junk, to be honest, as far as tracking that. By the time you'd enter a whole bunch of stuff in, you'd finally get to the final stage of whatever it was you're entering in, and then it's all bloody gone, and then that's about as much time as I have to look through a 7-page manual. It's like some of these tractors are blue ones. They come with 3 or 4 books. It's that thick. So my point is it taking around that little black puck? We're at that stage now. I talk to my little friend Siri in my phone all the time, and I don't mind the idea that someone's listening to me. I know she is. Like, hey Siri, can you phone Tara? And she'll do it for me. I don't know if she's sleeping. See, even technology doesn't work all the time. But the point that I was saying is, if you had that little puck with you, and you could say, hi, good morning, and she would say, good morning, Matt. And that's the type of technology I want to see. If you want me to load up all that data, I'd be awesome. It'd be great. This is the date that I put the fungicide on. This is how many gallons per acre is. This is the field image. I'd be talking to that little puck all the time. It's recording what I'm saying. It does the data entry for me. That's the next stage that we need to go to. Or even I wake up in the morning, that little puck comes with me. Good morning, Matt. Did you know that last 2 years ago you sprayed fungicide? Because it's feeling a little muggy out. I mean, that's probably where we need to go. And instead of me having to be responsible for entering all that crap. You know what I mean? And that's the level. That's a sell. And that's even like Iron Man. He does that. He's got his little computer that he's flipping through, and he's grabbing and he's doing all that stuff. That's the level I think that you're going to bring in. I don't know if I'm the only guy, but it's information overload to think that I need to enter all that stuff. I think we should, and it would be awesome. And I agree 100% with you. But it's it's on what device, and there's all this stuff. But Siri, she works awesome. If I had a little black puck that I could take with me, I'd like to know what your thoughts are. I'll sit down.
Yeah, no, that's, so we have a thing at Climate called a hackathon, where we'll basically, no, we won't shut down the office, but we'll ask all of our employees to come together and let's see what we can hack together. And one this past year was, hey, Fieldview, how's my weather? Or, hey, Siri, what's my field status? And then it was, hey, well, Matt, you should go and scout these 3 fields. You should consider fungicide because it's had a 64% return on investment in the past 3 years. Whatever that data is that you're talking about, absolutely. So I think, bringing the voice AI part, or the voice AI side into data and into agriculture data, certainly. That's an excellent idea. One thing that we're toying with is like a very low touch point in the cab for data collection, absolutely. So, some other programs, their number 1 hybrid planted, their number 1 field name and their number 1 farm name is, guess what it is in your 2630 or your Pro 700? Field 1, farm 1, client 1, hybrid A. Where's that data? Well, it doesn't matter, I gotta get going. I got a plant right now, I don't have time to type in Synergy. I don't have time to type in AAC. I just want field 1, farm 1, client 1. Why? Because, well, data's probably not that important. When have you ever used it before? When have you ever had to use it? Is it your hired man? Does he care that you collect data? So there's a lot of those things that absolutely we need to have that low touch point automatic data collection so that we can have that data later on. Great point.
Yeah, and I just remember that, well, using those John Deere combines, which was a switch for us this year, and to have, that was our first taste, like we'd had auto maintain in there, and it would tell you 37 seconds ago, I adjusted the sieves because of this, or what, minute and a half ago, I turned up the fan because of this, and I thought that is awesome. It's talking to me like I can understand it instead of like, I'm not going to beat up on case or anything, and they've changed obviously, but they'd give you some AR-75 or 4.2 warning sign with some type of a symbol, and you're thinking, what in absolute flying hell does that mean? And then, well, you have to look back in your manual that someone's driven over with a combine, and it says, and you're trying to figure out what is. It's ridiculous. But it's exciting to see where we can go. But I'd like to see the AI part of it. That's exciting for me.
Has to be a good experience for people. However we can make the experience best for growers, for everyone that uses it, it's going to be a good day.
Jerry Hertz, farmer at Edenwald. Matt, I got to ask you, was it Siri that was sleeping or Tara when you were checking that out?
Hey, Siri. Phone Tara.
I've been onto this, and so I've had a chance to play around with it. So I'll ask you a few specific questions. First year free, second year, or on? If you don't mind pressing that.
You want me to answer that now? Okay.
Yeah, I'll just throw things back until somebody else comes up here.
The question was, it's free in year 1. How do you get me on year 2? So we are a flexible scale in pricing, topping out at $3,000. So if you're 10,000 acres and above, you're going to be $3,000. If you're somewhere between 10,000 acres and 1,000 acres, you're going to be somewhere between $1,000 and $3,000. So 5,000 acre grower is going to be $2,200 maybe, $2,100, $2,100.
Okay. The aerial photograph that I'm working on right now is from 2016. Is that? I guess what I'm wondering about is in the first year we're using it where you got free, are you getting kind of old stuff? And then once you start paying for it in year 2, it'll give you all the current stuff? Because I'm kind of curious on why it would use aerial photographs from 2016.
Yeah, so when you first sign on with Climate or sign up with Climate and you bring in all your historical field data, so if you have field boundaries in My John Deere or you have it in whatever files and you bring that in, as soon as that boundary file is produced, you're going to have 3 years of historical satellite imagery brought into your account. So we have changed providers over the years of our satellite imagery, but the experience isn't like, oh, it's, when you pay, you all of a sudden unlock like a whole new set of satellite images which are sub-centimeter. There shouldn't be a difference in experience that way. We just include the 3 years of historical because it's always nice to go back and see, hey, does my yield map correlate to my satellite image back in June, which a lot of times for any skeptics in the room, there's a very high percentage correlation between satellite imagery and yield maps for most crops.
Yeah, I still got to go back to when I'm framing out my fields, and there's been a big difference between 2016 and 2018 on the areas that are underwater and stuff like that. So I was just curious about the actual picture that you're using to build your field on was based on 2016. Will that be updated, or how does that?
Oh, so you're talking the background Google image?
Yes.
Okay, so we get those from Google. So when Google updates those, that's where we get those. So, you know, if you're drawing your field in June and it shows snow, it's because that's when their satellite took that image to really get that. So we're held at those maps when they update those.
Okay, now to get back to a bigger picture again, the data that we're putting all into this, obviously it can be brought together by you guys. What are you going to do with that? And I'm not a big conspiracy theorist here, by no means. I just want to know, is that something that you're going to be selling elsewhere, or is it just for you to work with other clients like ALS Labs or something like that, so that I can link and automatically send my data to, or actually have all my field testing, soil testing done where it actually pinpoints and just feeds into my system. So it's for my benefit as opposed to sort of the bigger picture benefit?
Sure. So the data that's collected by growers is 100% grower owned. Growers choose who they want to share it with, what they share. The same as, you know, other platforms where you'll pick your field, your farm. If you want to share the yield data, you don't want to share the yield data, you don't have to. As for how it's used and sold, we do not sell it. It is very crystal clear in our privacy policy, and I encourage everyone to read it. You know, it's not super high legal lingo that's in there. It's very clear, very frank language in that we do not sell data. We use data to make our products better. Climate products, again, firewall to the old Monsanto to the new Bayer, but climate will use data to make products better, meaning can we optimize the experience that a grower will see? So when you're putting in the measurements for your combine, you can now see that most growers put in 192 inches to the top of their GPS beacon on their combine. So let's use that value in the app. So that was a good question. Does that answer that one?
Jim, and I'm a user of your product. And I guess my question is are we going to get to the point where you have weather prediction? You know, our sources, our government sources are not too great. Most of us buy a service somewhere else. And I know from spending half the summer kind of checking yours with ground truthing it with an actual rain gauge and that about halfway through I just gave up because you guys were right. And so I'd like to know what tomorrow's weather is going to be to make farming decisions. So you have all this satellite imagery data, you have all of that stuff. Is that a next step to moving to that? I mean, I don't know how many people here buy Drew Lerner's forecast, but I imagine it's a fairly high percentage.
Yeah, forecasting is certainly a tough one, as everyone, you know, how right is your local weather guy? If he's over half, I'd be impressed in just picking the next 2 days, let alone the next week or 2 weeks or month. Interesting question though, because around forecasting, so there was a new company announced just earlier this week that they have, they're going to send 55 satellites up into space, and they're going to have 24/7 HD 1 meter resolution of the entire world. So when we think about satellite imagery, and when you think about models, you think about weather, you're now going to be able to see that 24/7, or you're not, a computer will be able to. And you can now go to a website and see, hey, what does it look like in Uzbekistan above this area? And you'll be able to see probably not you, but the government will be able to see 1 meter resolution of farm or of cities 24/7. So now you can start to see storms, and you can see rain movements moving at real time 24/7. How high are they? What's their elevation? So that's going to bring on a whole new level of forecasting, absolutely. And as you train AI deep learning models to even get beyond that, so you can now predict where those are going to move, as seeing where they're moving and when they're going to change, and what the temperature swing is around each of those using, you know, thermal imagery. You can now start to really get a really good indication of what it is that's going to happen. So we kind of have it now where we'll have 4 days. So you can see in the app, we'll predict what's going to happen in the next 4 days. I'm not going to say that we're beyond the 50% right of most weather forecasts, but it's an indication of what's going to come. And we're certainly going to get more accurate with forecasting moving forward. Good question. Are there any other questions? if not, I'll be around for the remainder of the tour. Stop by me, have a conversation if you like. I'll be here, throughout, and I look forward to conversations. And thanks again for having me out.